Hey y'all, I hope you are doing well. We're going to start today with something very basic that most of you remember, and most of you have become extremely good at this. I am bringing us back to this to jog your memory and to help it stick in your brain so that next year when you enter whatever math class you're in, you will have this basic skill. I know doesn't seem basic because it's not simple, but it is a major building block, which makes it basic. Okay, you're going to start any factoring problem by looking at it and deciding what everything in there has in common. And if you look at this, you can see that everything in there is divisible by 2. So we're going to factor out the 2. And once we've factored out the 2, then we see if it can be factored using the X method. So I expect you during this video to be taking notes, so you should have written this down. I'm about to press pause, which you won't be able to tell, and add a bunch of stuff to this screen. Whenever that happens, you might need to press pause and process all of that, especially those of you that are slow riders. Dun 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 dun. That was a slow song. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go on to the next steps, and I'm going to provide you with words out in the right-hand column. Before moving on, make sure you remember what a term is. If you need to look it up, go ahead and push pause and try to figure out what a term is. Make sure you write down these words. Remember, when I write, you write. Okay, so in order to complete this problem, we need to figure out what times what is A times C and adds to B. Both things have to be true. If both things are not true, you're not going to get the problem correct. In my class, we used an organizational tool called the X method. So here we go. We put A times C on top, B on the bottom. Remember that every quadrilateral can be written in the form ax squared plus bx plus c, where a is always the number in front of the x squared, b is always the number in front of the x, and c is always the number by itself. Now, when you're looking at this x, you're asking yourself, well, what times what is a times c and adds to b? So in this case, what times what is 6 and adds to 5? Well, in this case, it's going to be 2 and 3. That can be kind of tricky to figure out. You might need a calculator. I mean, this one's relatively easy, but some of them are difficult. So be patient with yourself and try to be patient with your calculator, even though we all know technology is frustrating. So we go ahead and we don't have to, actually, but we in our class have always rewritten the problem. There are teachers who skip a lot of steps. I choose not to. I choose not to because I think it confuses a lot of people. So what we had, I'm going to rewrite what we had because I want to make a connection here. We had 2 times x squared plus 5x plus 6. Right? Well, we're going to rewrite that 5x so that instead of just being 5x, it's going to be 2 plus 3, 2x plus 3x, and that is going to be make it a lot easier to factor. So what we are doing is backwards foiling or backwards multiplying, backwards distributing, depending on what your teacher called it before you got to me. And this makes it a little bit clearer to do it this way. So here we're going to look at these first two, and we are going to see what goes into those first two. Now I'd like you to notice that I stuck with the same steps for that very first step. I asked you to something divide into every term in this entire problem. Here I'm asking you to look at only the first two and see what divides into only the first two. I have given you, although it's messier and it looks like more steps, I have given you fewer things to remember than, or I've tried to minimize it over the years. I used to do this really complicated process. Anyway, X goes into those first two, and 2 goes into those second two. And if you look there, if you did it right, well, sometimes it doesn't factor, but if you did it right and it's factorable, you're going to see that you have the same thing here and here. You're going to take and factor that out or divide that out so that you have x plus 3 factored out and you have a leftovers of x plus 2. Now what you have just done is changed a problem into a multiplication problem. Okay, so I've written down in words as best I can the process that we went through for those last two steps. So now what we have really just done, which I feel like a lot of you are having trouble understanding why or how we're doing what we're doing. So as you can see, what we have right here in our final step, which was right there, is something you used to go through and FOIL. And now we know how to backwards FOIL. And the problem when we backwards FOIL is that it's really hard to find these two pieces. That is the hardest part of all. And that X really helps you figure out what those two pieces are. So I'm going to box them up real quick. These two pieces are really hard to find. And I've found that more than any other method I've ever seen, been exposed to, this X method helps everybody organize it and make sense of it. So once you get to this step, you can actually find out that, oh my goodness, you have exactly the same problem. But that's not your answer. Understand that the answer is all the way up here before that line. Understood? Okay. Y'all have a great one. And now for the big job. Your job is to choose to explain one of the following polynomials, factor one of the, explain and factor one of the following polynomials in a fun, correct, and complete way. Explain and factor. I forgot that word. Okay. So, I don't care how you go about doing it. You can use, I don't even know what the programs are out there. You can use poster making abilities of the internet. You can make a web page. You can make a video. I think that's the most fun. You can make a video like this that's kind of boring, or you can make a fun one using any kind of video editing tools that you have. You can use skateboards, you can use a sport that you play, you can use any materials you'd like. Try to have fun with it, but make sure it's correct and complete, and post it to the discussion board. Bye.